Welcome to the Murfreesboro City Council. We are having our special meeting on our budget hearings. If you'll bow with me, we're going to say a quick prayer and then we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. Father, thank you for this chance that we get to come here today. Lord, I pray that the actions from this council, Lord, the people who are here in the audience, the blessings that they are in this community, the blessings that they have on so many people that are in this community, I pray that the decisions we make will bring glory to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank everyone for coming. At the request of Mr. Paul Latour, who's our chamber president, we're going to move the general or the outside agencies to the very end of the agenda. So if y'all have an issue, please see him on that. Just kidding. Mr. Lyons, we're excited to be here today to talk about our 2017-2018 budget, and I know you want to go and talk about the upcoming overview.
Sure. Mayor, I'd love to give you an overview. Normally when I introduce the budget, I talk to you about the movies, songs, books that we use. I'm going to pass on that this year, although there may be a video that surfaces later that came up during our departmental budget reviews. Really begin by talking about the current year very quickly. It's been a season of change in our city. News came out today that Murfreesboro is ranked the 10th fastest growing city in the country. When you're a rapidly growing city, you undergo a lot of changes. So when we started thinking about budget themes this year, we're going to continue to move forward, but we are going to try to set sail for some calmer waters this year. But there's much to be proud of from this past year. I know everybody had a very memorable opening to the Miracle Field. We bought land for 2 parks in West Murfreesboro, completed the 2 studies on the Highland Avenue area and the Bottoms. We automated our time and attendance and converted our payroll to arrears. And, this number was certainly impressive. We reviewed 420 development plans. The police department received its 2nd accreditation. We are fast at work on the new public safety radio system. We dedicated the Doug Young Public Training Center, open station number 10, along with the North Murfreesboro Greenway, and we are nearing completion of the renovation of our senior center. For the upcoming year, just a couple quick highlights. You're going to hear more from each of the departments, so I'm going to go quickly through this, but we're going to have new personnel in both police and fire rescue. We're upping our service level in fire to advanced life support. We'll begin development of the park on the McDonald property. We're working on relocating fire station number 4 and implementing citywide design guidelines. This year, we really want to put into action the 3 major studies that were done, the comp plan or the Murfreesboro 2035 and the 2 land use plans I mentioned earlier. We continue to partner with the Rutherford County Chamber with Destination Rutherford. Major study going on our solid waste, and that'll have some implications for us long term. We're going to finalize the major thoroughfare plan and got a number of road projects. We really want to focus on customer service. As always, we've got a new city website getting ready to be rolled out. There's a quick screenshot up there. We really want to make it easier for the public to use and streamline the look of it a little bit. But new software to manage our council agenda as well as our land development process in planning and building and codes. We're going to accept credit cards at all our parks facilities. We're going to partner with Motlow for our in-house EMT training. This is a big step for us to continue to advance the training of the men and women in the fire and rescue department. Transitioning the police department to a 40-hour work week and a 7-day tour duty. We are fast-tracking that as well. And a holiday signal timing plan. We are a regional retail destination. I know during the holidays we do have some congestion, so we've done some work to analyze how we can move traffic through our city better during the holiday shopping season. This year we really focused on engaging our community. That work will continue. City Council's holding its regional neighborhood meetings in all parts of the city. We've had a number of neighborhood meetings before items ever get to the Planning Commission. And continue to use social media, which is a very effective way for us to talk to our community about how things are going. This will kind of be part of the revenue overview, Mayor, as we kind of look big picture on the budget. The general fund revenues this year are $153 million. The city budget is...
Page 32, correct?
Yes. You can see the trend lined on that. A few years ago, sales tax passed property tax as our major revenue source. So while they're pretty close, the two of them combined for about half of our revenue. We did have to take a look at our sales tax collections this year with the Improve Act. So we'll see how that goes out going down the road. Our property tax revenues are projected to increase $3 million. As our community continues to grow, our tax base grows. New properties are getting added to the rolls, and that we're projecting a $3 million increase in our property tax revenue. Now, next year will be a reappraisal year, so we'll have to see where that takes us. Our sales tax revenues have grown 50% in the last 7 years. That really is an astounding number. That shows the investment that the community has made in roads, water, and sewer has been a solid one. The budget does include a $3.7 million fund balance appropriation, but I think some things to note. We've not used it in 7 of the past 10 years. It has grown $37 million since 2007 and $11 million since 2011. So that shows the city's conservative budgeting has continued to build a very strong fund balance for the city. Our general fund, well, just do a quick overview on the expenditures, and then we can turn to the departments. Our general fund expenditures are proposed to increase by about $6 million this year. Some of the 3 largest departments are police, fire rescue, and recreation. We did include a 3% pay adjustment for all eligible employees budgeted, 24 new positions, including 7 in police, 4 in fire rescue, and 3 in parks and recreation. The police budget was on today's agenda. We're going to push that to the next review session because we're taking a look at some additional police personnel. So that number 7, I would look to increase. We did get some nice increases in our state street aid. Our debt service increased by $1.1 million, but as we've mentioned to you before, the city's only using about half of its debt capacity. And the transition in police to the 40-hour work week actually will, because they're working more hours, translates to a 6.6 increase in their pay. About half of our general fund budget is for personnel costs. Quick look at the budget calendar. And I'll finish with this slide. When we put together a budget, there's a lot of work that goes into a budget, but it really gets put into action every day by the men and women who work for the city. I know the council joins me in saying that we think they are phenomenal and outstanding, and it's one of the reasons we're proud to say that Murfreesboro has led the state in salary increases since 2012, 18% in the last 5 years or 20% in the last 6. So I think that shows the investment that we've made for the men and women that work here. They do a great job, and we want to continue to reward them. Mayor, that would conclude my brief overview.
Okay. All right, we'll move. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the people who've put this budget together and the hard work they've put into it. We'll move to outside agencies. That's in your supplemental binder. You have your applications in your summary sheet. You have your 2017-2018 proposed budget request for funding from outside agencies. How we've done this in the past is really just, we won't go down the list. We'll ask if you have any questions, and then as we get to the end of the budget, if there's anything that you want to change, we'll do that at that time, which that last meeting is, is it the 6th? Is that right, Mr. Lyons?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the 6th of June. You have a list of the 53 that we have funded previously, and then we have, Ms. Wright, looks like 3 new applications. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's right. I'd like to give credit to one of my staff members, Heather Lovern. She helps me with the outside agency, so she is the one that's been in contact with all these wonderful people who provide all these support systems to our city.
I got a question on the outside agencies. Last year we had talked about, kind of the idea of having some sort of a, kind of a method or, a policy as to, hey, should we, based on the amount of growth in revenue, should we look at that perhaps as a way to say that's the amount that we should increase or not increase? If I look down through the list, I only see really it's just the chamber that looks like there's any different. So am I right in looking at that we haven't added any new from last year to this year, and we haven't increased any one other than a little bit of the natural increase in the library and then the chamber?
Yeah, and the chamber increase is based on the hotel motel tax.
Yeah.
So if you see the increase there, it's not because we randomly put money in there. It's because hotel motel occupancy has gone up, and we projected an increase citywide.
It's kind of our idea that this year we're keeping them all the same, I guess, or, that's where we started. Is that kind of where that came from, is that the other ones were?
It's been my practice that I'll put in what was the council agreed to last year. That's what I'll budget this year. And then if there's a request, I'll let the council move that up.
And the exceptions are the governmental type agencies, where there's usually some kind of contract in place, like the library. We share the funding with the county.
I knew that was, yeah.
Otherwise, they're just as they were put in last year.
Yeah.
Rob, looking at the chamber's budget, and it's obviously increased pretty significantly over the last few years, and I know that's because of tourism dollars. But should we at some point, is that, where does that 30% number come from? Is that just the typical number that we've used, or is there an agreement, or what exactly?
That's a pretty long-standing agreement. I think it goes back to when the Greenway was first constructed. We were trying to figure out how to fund Greenway as well as the chamber for the tourism work that they do, and I think it dates probably back to the mid-90s.
I think it goes maybe even all the way back to the beginning of hotel motel tax. It has increased once that I remember since I've been here, but it is an agreement that the county and the city put in place initially, I believe, when we did the hotel motel tax and we did the Greenway. It used to be a separate, the Parks and Rec used to be a separate fund, and then when the Greenway was built, I think we actually did increase it to help fund the Greenway for our side.
So does the county also do the same thing? They have a certain percentage?
For hotel motel. I don't know about their increase when they increased it last year, but before that, they have an agreed amount they give us each year. They paid into Parks and Recreation.
The increase from last year, unless I'm incorrect, I don't think I am, but I think the increase last year did not pass through back to the CVB. I think it was...
That may be. I'm not sure how they did that.
Straight to the county.
Went straight to the county.
But the amount we fund was passed at the council level. It was approved at council level for the chamber.
The 30%?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the part of the reason that I know myself and I think others are concerned with that number is based on the fact that we're considering in this budget hiring an economic development person for the city. And if we're going to have a person who we're going to pay directly for this same type service, should we look at changing that percentage and try and compensate for that employee's expense? Or is this just something that we're going to try to throw on in addition to? Currently, obviously.
That's what I was looking at too, Mr. Smotherman. We're giving them $92,000 for the economic developer. And if we're getting ready to hire one for the city, then will we back out the salary that we are going to pay our city economic developer, back that out of the chamber's 97,
Yeah.
250? Will we back that person's salary out of what we're going to give them? Seems like we double dipping.
Yeah, I think the chamber is still going to have a major role for us from an economic development standpoint. I had a conversation with the mayor today about how does this interrelate. The Chamber of Commerce is traditionally somebody who continues to market the community, grow jobs, work with the state on projects. I added economic development position in this budget because, as I mentioned at the beginning of my overview, we're the 10th fastest growing city in the country. And we think there's a large amount of work that can be done that complements the chamber. We've got the comprehensive plan and some of the economic initiatives that are in there, the 2 land use studies, TIF districts, really maybe focusing on some of those Class A office jobs that we've been looking at. So I think there's absolutely plenty to do for the city to do, but I also know that the chamber's been rock solid in working with us in growing the community as well. So hopefully that answers your question. But
If that's the case, and I'm hearing what you're saying, if that's the case, the person we are going to hire for our economic developer, here again, is doing the same thing the chamber's doing. Do we even need one for the city? And if we do need one, do we still back off of this $97,250 that we're giving the chamber for economic developer when we're getting ready to hire one? I just personally, and maybe I don't understand the big picture, I don't see the need. Maybe we should not hire one if the chamber's already doing this and we can use that money somewhere else. I mean, that's just me. And maybe I don't understand it.
That's a great question. I mean, that was really the conversation I had with Mr. Lyons today, that, you know, to really, and what department is that?
it's in the city manager's office.
Okay. And, you know, maybe discuss that when it gets to that city manager. But, I had doubts that someone that is on the governmental side would be able to cultivate the relationships that a lot of these recruiters and headhunters have on the private side, because we're limited in what we can do from a governmental side. So I had the same.
And maybe we can use that money somewhere else, outside agencies maybe.
Well, I mean, I think the one thing we do have to look at, that money, you've got planning, you've got police, I mean, several things that we overall need to look at, but
and this is one of the items that was discussed during our budget retreat,
Yeah.
and I, looking at hiring an economic development director, and that was, one of the other reasons I put.
Something that I'll mention just on a couple different levels, not only because of the economic developer. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's important for us to fund the chamber and to have our economic development person here, and I think they will, likely have some overlap, but probably not 90% overlap. I think it'll be more like 10% overlap, but based on the fact that that we may be paying now a higher kind of net percentage than the county, my suggestion would be, in conjunction with what you guys are saying, that maybe what we do is keep that number at 480, so we kind of keep that number this year the same as it was last year. That way we're not, a $90,000 lick would be a big hit, as far as their budget situation, but maybe if we keep the 480, yes, ma'am?
Could I just add, there's a separation here. The hotel motel tax goes to tourism. That's what we passed it for, and that part of the chamber's budget is their Visitors Bureau section. It's not funding their economic development section. I just verified that with Paul to make sure, but when we passed that, the support we were given, and it may can well be changed, and that's up, I don't know what has to change. I just want to make sure you understood that when we do that, we do it on a formula, and they get their percent, and the rest goes to these tourism-type agencies or to recreation, which has a lot of programs that people come here from other areas to visit.
Yeah, so I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of overlap either. I think there will be probably a little, but at the end of the day, we are now giving a higher net percentage towards that than the county is, because they've had an increase that we didn't take.
No, they're actually charging more. They should still be giving the same amount to the county to the chamber that we are. It's just they increased their hotel motel tax, and that increase is staying with them. They're not sharing that, but we're not charging
Out of the
that
total hotel motel tax that they are charging, they are giving a smaller percentage to the chamber.
Actually, probably the same, if not larger. I don't know if they give their hotels that are not in city the limits or not.
What,
So if they now
what
have-
maybe we might suggest is, I know I hear the questions here. Let me reach out to Mayor Burgess and get the specific response to him about what did they do last year, what did they do after the increase, and then I can report back to you.
I mean, I think what happened was there was a 1.25% increase. That 1.25% increase, the funding, and Mr. Latour may be able to tell us exactly, but I believe that 1.25% that was raised went to fire services in the unincorporated areas and did not go to the CVB. Mr. Latour.
Yeah, they were at 30%. They increased the hotel motel tax and took us down to 15%. But it as Melissa pointed out, it didn't change our money. We didn't get any less. We continue to get what we have been getting. We just didn't get the increase, as you pointed out.
So they doubled their tax, but they only gave them the percentage that they'd been getting.
So
So
as a
it was
percentage of-
reduced by 50%.
So as a percentage of the revenue that they're bringing in hotel motel tax, they are giving a smaller percentage than 30%.
But it equals
It's
what
the
they were
same money.
getting before, because they doubled their tax.
And if we keep it at 480, it will equal what we gave them last year as well.
And I would say this is also performance-based. So if we don't have the room nights that sell and you don't collect the tax, we don't get. So we get 30% of whatever the hotel motel tax is collected that year.
Yeah.
If they double and give them half the rate, they're giving them the same amount they gave them before.
So we're budgeting for a $15,000 increase in what we did from last year is really what you're looking that we're going to go up 0.5% in occupancy from last year's numbers to this year's numbers.
If things continue to go well, yes. But if they don't, if something happens or, whatever circumstances would dictate a downturn in our tourism, then we would get less.
Thank you, Mr. Latour.
Thank you.
So that really, that number is more of a variable number. It could be that, it could be less, it could be,
If we don't get it, they don't get it.
yep.
Which we'll probably get it because we bring in, you're talking about tax, right?
The hotel motel occupancy tax.
We'll get over that because the spring fling and the millions of dollars that's going to bring, we're going to get way over that.
We hope. We budget for that every year.
About 3 million over. So it's going to increase.
One of the questions, this whole discussion, you just reflect back upon our workshops that we had about this issue that, the stream of income for the chamber not affecting that, but the need for economic development approach from our city standpoint and the enhancement of our tourism product in our community is significantly important. And we might want to look at how we fund that, not just supporting what's happening at the chamber and their efforts for tourism, but to try to enhance that commitment from the city standpoint. So having this position of not just an economic development, but tourism enhancement and coordination in our community, to have those assets coordinated in the effort for tourism in our community, take another step towards that. So I think one of the role is having that under our administration staff is an important step, but also finding that source and not affecting what we're talking about here in outside agency funding, but what is our commitment to tourism within our actual budget? And we might want to think about that as we move forward. I'm not going to address that right now, but at some point in time, I think we might want to consider additional funding for that particular need in our community. So.
And I guess when we look at incentive-based, which this really isn't incentive-based, I mean, it's just the hotel motel tax occupancy. And all hotel rooms that are used in this city are not based on tourism. Many of them are based on people coming here because they have businesses here or they have, so it's not directly a true tie that you can say there's a connection between tourism and hotel occupancy. I mean, obviously, if we were to attract a nice headquarters in the Fountains, there would be X number of people who would be staying in hotels based on the development of that project itself versus with no relationship whatsoever to tourism, but you would have an increase in your hotel occupancy, I guess is my point. So I think there's the benefit of us having the control of a certain segment of it, but I'm not sure that the system or the way we're doing it currently is the best system that we could possibly have, because there's really no relationship that's incentive-based other than just saying we look at this final number and voila, there's our answer to what we should give. I'm not sure I like the methodology behind that.
Well, and the long-term sustainability of the assets in our community, over a period of time, the city has really not addressed that. We basically left them to fend for themselves. And the coordination of those assets, tourism assets in our community, whether they be events or venues, we've left them on their own to kind of fend for themselves, like I say. And so I think, there's a more sustainable way of looking at how that happens. And I think that our city government has a role to play in that. So, I think that fits itself back under our budget more directly rather than an outside agency kind of a approach. But, we can address that in another discussion in this process.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I was going to say, what may be good on this specific point, that as we get to the administrative budget where we are talking about that economic development position, maybe to talk about that in entirety with that. And then really, because, although I look at the chamber is an outside agency, it's really a little more as that's included when we're comparing the chamber to the many other organizations here that are helping the community. So it may be good. Let's talk about that if it's okay when we get to that economic director position. That'll be good to.
And then,
Go ahead.
And in the future, also, if we are bringing in, and it's probably more now because I know up until maybe 6-8 months ago, we were bringing in a minimum of 200 people, actually not only just coming to Murfreesboro, but they're coming into Murfreesboro to stay. And I'm thinking when we're looking at outside agencies, when we go and annex an area, they have to have all of the fire, police, garbage pickup and everything. That's an increase. So if these people are actually coming here, a minimum of 200 people a month to stay in, we need to in the future look at better funding these outside agencies, giving them more, because they are actually servicing not only people coming in, but they're servicing the people that are here. So when we're looking at the whole picture, I would like to see us bring in the outside agencies for more money.
Does anyone have any questions on each individual one? Again, if we have anything that needs to be added or deleted, we normally will do that at the meeting where Ms. Wright will talk about additions or deletions to the budget.
And the other thing, Mayor, if there was a question, because typically the outside agency representatives are here at this first meeting and don't come back. So if there was anything in particular you wanted to ask while they were in attendance, this would be a good time.
I will say that our outside agencies do a tremendous job of providing services to this community and attract people to this community and improve the quality of life. So personally, I want to thank each and every one of you for the jobs you do. I'm not even going to start naming organizations because I think all of you do a fantastic job, but it doesn't go unrecognized, and We certainly appreciate it. We wish we had more money to give you, to be honest, but the city only has X number of dollars as well. And as us being responsible to the taxpayers, I think we're kind of limited as to how much we can give. But with the limited resources that we do have, I certainly know that you squeeze every penny and get as much as you can out of it. And thank you very much for what you do for this community.
Second.
Third, fourth, fifth, sixth.
And I would ask all of you all your organizations I know run lean, and many of you, when you went through, all of us went through the recession back in the early 2010, coming out of that everyone is still working off probably the budget that you had back 6 or 7 years ago. So I would ask everyone, if you wanted more, need more money, to raise your hands, but I know what that answer is going to be. So, our job, not only here with the city, but, if there's a way within, our individual spheres of influence, if we can help you, because when I look out in this audience, there's only so much as a government that we can do. And you guys are the ones that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting in the different organizations and the people and residents that you deal with on a daily basis. And I think I speak for everyone to tell you, I can't tell you how much we appreciate what you do. And if there's any way we can help, Councilman LaLance wants to do a dunking booth, anything like that. He wants to. He's got to go through a knee surgery first, but he may have to wait 6 months. But we want to help with that. And the discussions on tourism, whether it be heritage tourism and some of the things that we've discussed over the last couple of years, I think we can absolutely have those and get that nailed down. So any questions for our outside agencies? Unless y'all want to stay and talk about all these fun things, y'all are free to go. Thank you so much.
Individually, I think we approve them at the very end. So.
Okay.
Oh, let's just have further dialogue about, hey, we can talk about do.
What good is
Make a good retreat to talk about policy and how we increase these things. Like we talked about, makes all sense. Our population has increased by 10% last year. Maybe we ought to consider increasing these by 10%. That we have kind of a reason for
Protocol.
I mean, kind of a, hey, and if we have to veer off that, we'll use the application to veer off that. But then we just kind of have a standard protocol. And also we can talk about the 30% change. Hey, do we think is 30% the right thing? Do they deserve that? Do they use it right? I mean, hey, maybe.
But if they doubled, if that's what they did, if they did that, but they kept the amounts that they give the same, then their percentage would be half.
Right, it would.
What it would be in the past. And so they've already broken the agreement. If there was
That was kind of the discussion that happened when they did it. Yeah.
I swear I don't think it is.
I mean, they raised that point and then lowered their.
they're not.
Oh, really? They brought in an extra $1 million.
They're not giving
Snacks.
You like that? Not really. Salted peanuts, Fritos, Doritos.
That's how we're thinking of it.
Because they didn't use the name tourism. The tourism section that gets it is getting the same amount.
We agree with that.
I want to make sure we do.
We're giving them 97 here. We're giving them 1,000 this thing. Yeah. And then we're
No, so they cut it off.
These are all agreements that y'all have.
Okay, we'll move into the fire and rescue department. And just staff members who are here, for those of y'all who, are looking for special favors, the council members have authorized me to move people up and down on the list like we did last year. So if So for that, Chief Folks, you go to Z. I'm just kidding. Chief Folks, we are on Fire and Rescue, page 112.
Mayor, members of council, good afternoon. First, as Mr. Lyons mentioned, I'll highlight a couple of things that we've accomplished this past year. Of course, in your budget document, there are several other accomplishments that we undertook this past year as a department. But Station 10 opening was our big accomplishment that started in July, getting service to the Veterans Parkway area on the west side of the city and providing service to the entire city. Station is fully staffed 24/7 and providing good service, and everything is going well there. Advanced EMT, providing advanced level emergency medical technician level service is another thing that we had accomplished this past year. Purchase of a new 100-foot aerial. The delivery is expected in August, but we began that process this past year. Implemented a new phone system, voice over internet protocol, which is going to result in a significant savings in our annual budget that you'll see reflected in the budget this coming year. Also introduced video conferencing as a form of training to get all of our lecture-based training done to all of our stations all in one format, which greatly reduces our training staff's time having to deliver classes, as well as it keeps our companies in service in their territory to answer calls. We also, and coming up in this year's budget, some of the highlights that are there, as Mr. Lyons mentioned, we are requesting 4 new positions. The first position is a civilian position that would not be a sworn firefighter type position, but would be a civilian logistics manager position. Currently, we have several different functions within the fire department that fall under some of our assistant chief and other staff that are on shift as well, managing all of our personal protective equipment, our self-contained breathing apparatus, uniforms, multiple forms of equipment that go on trucks, hoses. Many of those things are time sensitive. Even our hose have expiration dates on when we're supposed to take them out of service. Our turnout gear is supposed to come offline after 10 years and different things like that. And so we, as much as our department is growing with 10 stations and over 200 personnel, we really feel like it's necessary to have a logistics manager keeping up with all of those, making sure that we do not have any, especially personal protective equipment going out of date, anything like that occurring. The other positions that we're requesting is we now have 3 positions requested as a fire and life safety specialist. These positions, their main essential function would be to perform fire inspections. In the past, we have performed fire inspections with our captains on shift. Now that we are doing emergency medical response, as well as having to endeavor into more training avenues and the special operations components, we're having a very difficult time fulfilling getting a lot of our current or occupied business re-inspections done on an annual basis or on a basis that NFPA requires us to do for those buildings. These positions would primarily be responsible for doing existing building inspections, but they would also coordinate community risk reduction activities, including public education programs in our schools, which we have a very exciting program coming up this fall in conjunction with our city schools that they would be coordinating, as well as fire cause and origin determination, not necessarily fire investigations, but initial cause and origin would be this position. This would essentially be a building block on up into an assistant fire marshal's role if the person chose to do that, but it's going to fill a lot of components that we need to fill getting inspections done over time. Additionally, this year, Station 4, the replacement of that station, which was built in 1960, of course, is in parts of those are in the capital improvement budget. Doug Young Public Safety Training Facility, we've decided to phase this in order to keep both the police department and our department training over there. Since we have acquired the facility, we are using it on a weekly basis to get training accomplished, and we want to make sure that we can phase this to where we can continue to use the facility while construction is going on in other parts of the facility. And as Mr. Lyons mentioned, by July the 1st, we expect to be fully functional with 4 stations, advanced life support with paramedics responding out of those stations. Amazingly enough, those 4 stations would respond to about 75% of our medical responses citywide. And then we're going to continue generator installation and Additionally, we are in the early stages of pursuing international accreditation as a department. One of the things that's not currently in your budget that I spoke with Ms. Wright about this afternoon about when it would be placed in there is we were awarded a couple of weeks ago with a Assistance to Firefighters federal grant that we applied for. This grant is $477. The total project is $477,020. The funding coming in from the federal government is $433,655. Our match is 10% of the total, so it would be $43,365. Again, this is not indicated in your documents at this time. This will be put into the budget as an expense as well as a revenue for the source of the funding coming from the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. That program is going to provide two things. It's going to provide, and both of them are kind of life safety components or safety components for our personnel, a vehicle exhaust system for all of our apparatus at our stations. That's a direct source capture exhaust system for the diesel apparatus installed in all of our stations, as well as communications intercom headsets for the apparatus that help prevent hearing loss, first of all, but also increase communications. The radio will override the intercom within the trucks, and those grants will provide these needed resources for us. And other than that, that's the major highlights or the overview, and I can answer any questions for you. Yes, ma'am.
I was reading somewhere. We are now give me a moment. Let my brain catch up here. When we respond, now we can do IVs and medication and things like that.
Yes, ma'am.
When we're talking about medications, what type of liability do we have in place in case a mistake is made, medically for giving the wrong medication or whatever? Are we okay as far as liability insurance on that?
Yes, ma'am. We are covered. All of our personnel being sworn on duty and trained, licensed personnel through the state of Tennessee. The city falls under the tort limits of liability from the state. So while in the actions or the course of doing our job, we fall under the tort limits of liability coverage provided by the state for that while you're in the action of doing your job. And the city provides additional insurance for both our personnel and the city to cover up to that tort limit of liability. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the city also carries additional insurance above that tort limit, as well as the self-insured coverage that we have.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. It was just making me a little nervous because, mistakes happen. And we're not talking about physicians or anything, so I'm okay with that.
Yes, ma'am. All of our personnel are covered individually under those tort limits as well while they're in the course of their duties. And it is already, we have administered more medications and started more IVs than we had originally thought that we would in this time frame. We've been doing that service since October. Okay. It's a very successful program, and it's greatly enhancing the lives of the citizens of Murfreesboro providing that. The advanced life support is going to even better enhance that. Like I said, our paramedics will be able to respond to about 75% of our calls in those 4 stations that we're going to be providing, and we're going to continue to look at alternatives to add paramedics as far as staffing goes with new personnel that we hire, sending additional personnel to school to enhance those services citywide.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, you feel good about this budget?
Yes, sir.
Anything else you need that you might not get?
We are blessed with what we have been provided by the city over the years, and we are blessed to have.
You need to come sit up here in these chairs right now.
We'll provide the services that we can, but thank you.
Mr. Lyons has trained you well.
Chief, we have talked about, I think all of us have talked to different employees about, and we've had this discussion about relief driver pay. Were we able to come to a way as far as incentivizing that, or is that one of the things that's in the budget?
That's something that we were going to look at as far as the pay goes and different potentials for incentive, or looking at a potential having a checkoff system that would provide that incentive potentially.
Have we been able to come up with what that cost is going to be to make sure that that's in the budget?
Not yet, but typically I know we look at there's always some payroll slippage or savings elsewhere in the department, so I'm pretty confident we can handle it within this.
What I had recommended was, Chief has been working really hard on making sure relief drivers, that we've got enough, drivers to move, or firefighters to move up to drive. And, y'all heard us all say this, that we want to make sure that people are rewarded for taking that extra step. So what he talked about is maybe a stipend if you get checked off to be a relief driver, and then if you get checked off to operate all 5 apparatus that we have within our department, then there's maybe another stipend. So really you're rewarding people for doing that extra step. So I would really like to see us have that in here. So.
We'll look to add some money.
Okay.
Chief,
Any questions for Chief?
I was just going to say, last week I know you guys were out there, MTSU's Rutherford Boulevard parking lot with your training and qualifying for your drivers, and it was exciting to see how many officers or firefighters had shown up out there to get their certification and qualification, and so it's exciting to see the energy that they have towards advancement and continuing to progress in their careers with our fire department. So good stuff.
And that was actually our promotional assessment center for that, where we had an outside departments come in and assess our personnel for the driver positions that we will be promoting. And that was a great assessment center that provided a equal footing for all personnel doing it, as well as training opportunities in the stead of that. And we appreciate MTSU allowing us to use that parking lot facility. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, we'll move to page 208. We have the solid waste department. Mr. Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Highlights for us is, as Mr. Rob said, that we were one of the 10 fastest growing municipalities in the country. Well, we delivered 975 carts last year from July the 1st to March the 31st. So I can honestly tell you from our standpoint, our business is picking up. We're continuing working with Rutherford County, Laverne, Smyrna, and Eagleville on the solid waste plan. And we have received 6 of our new trucks. If you have seen the big, well, to me they're light gray, but I guess you could say Murfreesboro blue. They are out running, and we should be receiving 3 more here in about the end of this month of June, and hopefully before the first week of July. Are there any questions? I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Mr. Smith, do you feel like you've got the appropriate staff in place? If we ever get any complaints on solid waste, it's always brush pickup. Do you feel like you've got the appropriate staff in place for brush pickup?
Well, right now we are almost around about every 2 weeks, and as I can attest, if you go through Northwoods today, after we ran through it, somebody's going to have a pile of brush out behind us. That we are working on, I do know that we have scheduled a work group on a couple of issues within the solid waste department, and we are working on some ordinance changes that we think that would enhance some of the pickup, whether it be bagging grass, making it mandatory, or just bagging the Osage oranges or magnolias, because when you pick them up with a claw, Osage oranges do not sort of stay in the bucket. They sort of have a tendency to roll off everywhere. So it just makes it a little bit easier for us to, would be easier for us to get around. But this year, I'm sure that they probably always will be, but we've actually been around pretty well about 2 week run, which is between 14 and 21 days is what we generally say.
We were proactive this year. Heading into the spring cleanup season, we work Saturdays and Wednesdays just to try to stay out ahead of the heavy volumes. So we continue to watch staffing levels. But I think Mr. Smith is right as part of the solid waste study, taking a look, big picture about how we manage our brush collection is something that the study needs to inform us on, and could be changes coming in the future, but right now I think we have enough personnel.
Let me ask the same question Shane asked, and you can answer with a simple yes or no. Do you have enough people if we have a storm come through and have devastation in the area? how long do you think it would take you to recover to get back into a normal cycle?
Well, if you're taking history from Good Friday tornado, it took us almost 6 months. I mean, cleanup.
Right,
I mean,
right.
as far as the first,
But I'm talking about your typical spring storms and,
we're appropriately staffed right now. We're actually, part of what we're doing on Wednesdays and stuff are training our newer employees up, because getting out, you think picking up garbage from an automated side loader standpoint is a totally different perspective than training somebody to work from a boom truck so it's same skill to drive the vehicle. It's not the same skill to operate either one of them. So that's what we're actually doing is we've increased our training program for our newer employees. They can come in and do.
sounds good, thank you.
You mentioned, Joy, in the proposed solid waste fee, but it's not in this budget. It's next year is what, you mentioned it in your description here about the $5 solid waste fee, but it's not in this budget. It's for next fiscal year. Is that what
We did include revenue for solid waste fee, but I think we really want to wait for the study to come back, have the council review that and make decisions about how to handle that.
I saw. Okay. Just wondering where the revenue was going to be placed. If you want to put that. Okay. Thank you.
All right, any questions for Mr. Smith?
Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move into fleet services, page 215. All right,
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Do a few highlights of our department summary. You can see we have 780 pieces of rolling stock. This is a increase by 73 of vehicles and equipment. We also emission tested 413 vehicles in April, which is a 60 vehicle increase over last year. So as you can see, as the city's continuing to grow, so is the city fleet. Having said that, we've proposed in the budget for an additional heavy equipment mechanic. We now also, this is our first year, complete year of handling all of the purchasing and inventory of gas and diesel for the city used at the fuel islands, as well as maintaining those fuel islands. We also introduced a pilot program through Fuel Master for automotive information module to use on the vehicles, and this eliminates the inaccurate driver entered data from the fueling and data collection process. It also prohibits fuel from going into unauthorized vehicles or containers. And it also gives us a report off the OBD data from the vehicle computer, so we can see if there's a check engine light on a vehicle that's not being brought to fleet for repairs. We've also, this was our first complete year with our Napa IBS parts store, which is located at Fleet. They now handle all the parts in the parts inventory for us. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
What do you think about the idea of possibly the city having a fleet of cars, for various departments to draw from? What do you think about that?
Well, there are times when that would be handy. Right now, the individual departments actually control and own their own vehicles. We maintain them for them.
Right.
But some departments do have spares that they keep at Fleet.
Oh, thank you.
any questions? Thank you, Mr. Hike.
Thank you.
Literally for keeping us up and rolling. All right, we'll move to the planning department, page 128. Mr. Whitaker.
Mayor, members of the council, it's a pleasure to present the 18 budget for you this evening. We've been extremely busy this last 12 months. Went through and run a few numbers. We were just shy in the last 12 months of having 10,000 people visit the planning and engineering department. I'm going to give Chris Griffith credit for taking a part of those. I can't take all of them. They handled a few of them. We also averaged in the last 12 months approximately 47 submittals per month. That's site plans, development plans, residential subdivisions, etc. Just to give you an idea of kind of what we've been doing in the planning engineering department. A few of the things that I was going to cover, actually, Mr. Lyons covered in his opening presentation. A few of them that he didn't, I'll touch on. One of which is to try to conduct a census this year, which would be very beneficial as far as our lion's share of tax base. Another item would be to implement and purchase some land use software, which would help us immensely as far as the plan submittal and the flow through of those plans. As well as I'd like to look at restructuring the department a little bit. I've been planning on doing that since I've been there. We've been processing plans the same way for the last 30 years. I think it's time to take a hard look at that and see if we can get a little more efficient. With that being said, the downtown studies that we have done, I consider that the first phase. The second phase we'll do this budget year, which would be the parking analysis downtown to allow us to expand our CBD district, as well as do the core overlay, which would implement the I call them character areas of the Highland study. And I am requesting an additional principal planner this year. And with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions if there's any.
So, Mr. Ruger, is that one planner or two?
That is one planner.
And that's all you need?
Yes, sir. I'm going to say. Actually, I think if we add an additional principal planner, I think, and then restructure what we're doing, I think we can handle the workload just fine.
And just to add to that, Mr. Wade, the additional planner, this goes back to some of the work we did in the workshops, where with the adoption of the studies, we want somebody focusing on that long-term planning. That'll give Mr. Whitaker an opportunity to look at that. And then the new development software, we really think can help us make us more efficient. Right now, it's a very manual process. The response we've heard from other communities is when you can automate that, you can pick up some good efficiencies there as well. So I think it's the addition of headcount and the software in combination to help them deal with their high workload.
And Mr. Wade, if things were to taper off a little bit, there's areas that we do need to study in the city, and my hopes would be to do some of that in-house as opposing to having to outsource some of that. The Broad Street, the Old Nashville Highway area is definitely a study area, among others, that we could do. So there's plenty of work for us to do.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Whitaker, why did the operating costs go down so much? It looks like there was a significant decrease in that.
We're extremely efficient.
I knew that. I knew that already. I just thought it went down significantly.
If you don't buy that, I'll try to explain it.
Okay.
Actually, we had more money last year and the previous year for the studies, the Highland, the bottom study. That has been cut, drastically reduced for this year, what we're doing, so that's why that number's probably dropped so much.
It went down $250,500 was the total contractual services that went down.
Oh, okay.
What's the other, the $143,500 that we've got for contractual services? What does that entail this year?
Part of that would be going to actually the traffic count and to try to come up, because I want to double the central business district. To do that, we have to justify and show that we have adequate parking today, and then have a plan for adding parking in the future, because the CBD does not require parking requirements downtown. And we have today, we really don't know where we're at as far as parking downtown. And it would also do things like show us strategically where, if in fact in the future we were going to do that, where it would be placed, and also how to fund that. The other one is actually to help us craft the overlay. The Highland area and the Bottoms area, I consider those as, when we did that study, all that area is not the same. There's character areas for each of those different areas. Some are entertainment, some have multifamily, some have commercial, and each of those need to be addressed separately and what you can do. And also, I want to expand that over to First Avenue and then go across if you go out West Main, to Bridge Avenue and expand that district, because those areas are prime for redevelopment as well. And that's to create that, and I hope to do it in an overlay. Currently, I wanted to do this in-house, Mayor, but I just don't have the staff today to actually write that. It's going to be a pretty lengthy rewrite in adoption to our zoning ordinance for that.
I guess where I was going with this, if we know we've got this workload and we've got, almost $145,000 budgeted for contractual services, does it make sense to take some of that and hire an additional planner and lower that contractual service if we know that we've got the workload that is there right now?
Well, actually, the workload is there now for the additional planner without trying to do the studies.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is, do you need another additional planner in lower contractual services and be able to have two additional planners come on board?
That is an option. I would be open.
Yeah. So that may be something, as the part that we've all talked about over the last many years is more of a one-stop shop, and trying to facilitate that with small businesses, individual businesses that can't afford to have engineers and some of those things. So, I think if that is a possibility, and you can have a planner, all the planners that can do a little bit of that, but also do some of these other things, that may be an option.
It would be great to have a planner on staff that basically would do the study areas for us, and we could do that in-house. And like I said, that's part of what I want to do, is restructure how we've done things in the past, and we would be happy to do that.
Maybe y'all talk about that. If it makes, the negative with that is you're bringing on a head count that's long-term going to be much more expensive than that one-time recurring number.
But there will always be studies, and
Yeah.
as we open the meeting with the 10th fastest growing city, that's probably not something that's going to change dramatically.
Yeah.
And so, and with 2035 plan projecting doubling, you're only preparing for the future, I think, by adding the additional heads.
Do we have to wait till additions?
Because if you go back and you look at 15 and 16, we were 300,000, then we went to 394. Or actually we went to 415. So my guess is if you go back the past 2 or 3 years, even before that, there's always something that we're working on. I guess the biggest concern, Mr. Lyons, I have, that we've got this big vision of what we're wanting the 2035 plan to do, and you guys there's a difference between working on your business and working in your business, and you guys are working in your business every single day, trying to manage what's coming in the door, what's happening, and we don't necessarily have the time to be able to work on it because we're trying to get everything else done. So I think that may be something.
Do we need to wait till we have the additions and deletions discussion? I mean, otherwise, I'm going to.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to give guidance what you want us to do.
I'll just go ahead and put my nod to it too. I mean, as far as make my piece on it, that you guys work real hard. I mean, there's just no getting around that. You guys got a bunch to do, and here's my sense is that even if things slow down a little bit as it relates to new development and that sort of thing, that that would really just open up the door for us, for his staff, to be able to actually shift to something that's a little more proactive. And I think that's what you mean when you say work on your business, and where you guys can look at trends and things and see, hey, look, this is kind of going a way that maybe it shouldn't be going, or we like to see this, and then you guys could actually put together the work instead of us having to hire out a study to do that. So, two's my vote.
And to follow up on what Rick's saying, I mean, everything that we study is with intentions of improving the quality of life for the citizens of Murfreesboro. And whether we're looking at traffic or whether we're looking at parking or whatever the study is to improve the quality of life for overall Murfreesboro, and sometimes just a specific area. But if we can do that in-house, I think we'll have a better hands-on feel for what it is we're trying to achieve, as opposed to continually going outside. And I think that I'm in agreement with.
The only thing that I'll just put this in, and I agree they need more staff, but sometimes, you can say yay or nay to this, but particular issues of planning require a certain expertise and a certain knowledge of how to develop that plan. And sometimes those people, you hire them, or you just need them for that particular study. Like you were talking, our planning study, our parking study for downtown or something like that. There's a certain expertise for that. It's not just a general planner that you would need. They could do it, but would you have the same quality of work? So there's a yin and a yang to this to consider. It's not just as simple as just putting more people on the ground. I think maybe a little discussion or something like that as to, because I think at some point in time, you outside input to a specific problem that you're trying to address from a planning standpoint might be welcomed.
I don't disagree. It's hard for me to turn down personnel.
I understand. I understand.
But with that being said, that's where I think, and I hope the last 3 that I've hired have been, you try to get the diversity you need on your team so you have that expertise to be able to do that. And I feel that the staff I have, they are extremely qualified, and I have people on staff that could conduct those studies today. Actually, we just don't have the time. We're trying to process what comes in the door to get it out, to keep development going. And for instance, Franklin, they have 13 planners on staff. I know we're not Franklin, but we generate a lot more coming in and out the door than they do. And the planning staff, it's been understaffed for a long time, and they work hard and do a great job. But we've been doing more administrative stuff than long-term planning and visioning. And some of these plans actually the Broad Street plan needs to be in place now, so it can come to fruition over the next 20 years. So, but it's a challenge I'll be willing to try.
Gary, with 2 planners, the commitment that I'd be looking for would be that you felt like 2 planners would give you a lot better chance to, and I agree, there's going to be some of those expertise issues. This won't negate the need for us to ever have another study done by, specific professionals. Although, just so the thing that I'm looking for is that will give us the best option for your area to be able to be proactive versus solely reactive, which is, I'm not pinning that on you. I think it's just the cards you've been dealt, as far as the number of people you got to work with versus the number of projects that are coming through. Does 2 get you in a better position to be able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm not going to turn down staff, I promise.
We're not in the business of just of throwing away money either. So we want to make sure it's going to be used correctly. And one of the things that one of my I've already given you the vote on too, but one of those caveats would clearly be that you feel like that would allow some folks in your area to be able to be proactive and try to tackle some of the issues that we currently have and that we're going to keep having.
And as we redevelop areas, they're going to come up, and we're going to have to rewrite overlays for those redevelopment areas. And I have people on staff that actually I would assign to that today, but unfortunately, I've got them looking at site plans because, in fact, today, Mr. Lance, they're being underutilized. They're doing more administrative than they are planning, really.
Okay. I think you've heard from everyone on adjustment to contract labor, and when I say contract labor, I'm thinking in construction terms, contract labor, but contract services in regards to another planner. So,
okay.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. We'll move to the engineering department.
Thank you.
And infrastructure department. Mr. Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. It has been a incredibly busy year in 2017. It appears that 2018 will follow suit. We've presented to you a fairly flat budget for 2018 with one increase to our staff, a project engineer. Our goal is to continue to move with this particular person our capital improvement projects forward as Mr. Kerr is developing a very ambitious major thoroughfare plan. And we also will continue to help with other departments with their capital projects as well. A couple of projects that we're looking forward to this coming year is both the Kingdom Drive and Perlino Bridge projects. We believe those will help our east-west connection in the Franklin Road, the Cason Lane to Veterans Parkway area. As well as a couple of a little bit more local projects, Jones Boulevard, as we improve the pedestrian connectivity with that in the Mitchell-Nilson area, and then also Rucker Lane as that area continues to develop. With that, I'd like to give Mr. Raymond Hill this opportunity to discuss a little bit about what the street division is doing this year.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. I'd like to, first of all, on behalf of the street division, thank you guys for your continued support. Chris asked that I come and just talk just a little while about the street department. We are continually aggressively moving and growing, and we are continuing to build our stormwater program. This entails regrading and maintaining our current ditches and drainage systems. We continue to repair. We repaired over 200 failures last year of the street. We continue to upgrade our current maintenance contract with the state to reflect the current annexations that came in, and successfully the state did up our contract with them for the right-of-way maintenance as well. So we were proud of that. Also, we've got to implement our new brine system. And I just thought for you numbers people that you'd like to have some good news. Obviously, we can't use brine in every winter storm, but we can make brine for about 5 cents a gallon, where normally I was putting about 4 tons of salt per lane mile, which was costing us about $240. And now at 5 cents a gallon, I can brine a street at $2.58. So, I mean, huge differences, and every chance we have the opportunity to use this new brine system, we're going to. So we're quite proud of that, but luckily we didn't get a big winter this time. So, but, you know, we never know what's going to happen here in Tennessee, that's for sure. A couple of things that we're looking for as far as departmental goals. We're going to continue to add to our sweeping program that we have in place. We have just went through our route to be sure. When I first come on, I wasn't comfortable that we were covering every street as much as it needed to be. So now we've went completely through the whole system, and we guarantee that every street in the city of Murfreesboro is being swept and being swept accurately. And we know that those numbers are showing up because Darren Gore shared with us that we're collecting that debris before it gets into the storm drain systems, which help cleans our rivers and streams, and we're quite proud of that as well. So we're going to continue with that. And the next big thing this upcoming year that we want to work on is a pothole patching program. As you know, nobody likes potholes, and you sure don't want to hit one of them. But winter is when we really struggle, when the asphalt plants go down. With the new truck, we'll be able to patch all winter long, and the truck that I'm looking at has the ability to do a mapping system with it and tracks each pothole as it's being patched. And that information will be free to Risk Management Department. Will have access to that. If someone calls in and has a claim for damage to a vehicle, Mr. Rucker will have the opportunity to pull that up and see exactly when it was fixed at the exact time. So I'd like to thank you again. If you have any questions for the street division, I'm glad to answer them for you.
Great work.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Infrastructure budget.
Just real quickly, Mayor, the infrastructure budget is really just it's primarily the federal our federal portion of our construction projects. It's money that we expect to get reimbursed for. It can also be maybe a developer, maybe expected to be reimbursed for it, or even or possibly the county. On page 156 of the budget, we have 4 projects that are listed there: Bradeville Pike, Cherry Lane, Lytle Street, and Middle Tennessee Boulevard, which we expect to, and that's the money that we expect to spend this year for them. The transportation projects, the traffic signals, I believe that is the Gateway Boulevard Medical Center Parkway project for $500,000. That we will be reimbursed for as well. So that is all funds that will basically be spent by us initially, but reimbursed by outside agencies or developers.
Mayor, this budget, Mayor and Council, this budget is actually a response to some questions you've had in past budgets where, for instance, the Recreation Department, you'd see that it was significantly under budget because the Greenway didn't get built. We've moved those over here now to help clean some of that up.
We also noticed on that page there is a line that is actually a subtotal line that should have been hidden. So if you try to add those numbers down, they won't add because there's a line called Local Street Projects, which is actually a subtotal of all the numbers above it. But it was not double budgeted, in case anybody thinks
Gotcha.
they found something.
I know we all had that on our list that we had already found that, but I'm glad you brought it up.
We had already figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for bringing that up. All right, Mr. Griffiths, we'll go to State Street Aid.
Yes, that is the city's portion of the state fuel tax, which we are happy to say is increased. Should increase this year with the increase on the gas tax. That money is primarily spent on our paving program. We do hope to start actually funding some local projects on that, maybe some intersection projects. I know Mr. LaLance and Mr. Smotherman have really all the council has shown an interest in maybe maybe a turn lane that we could add to an intersection, or maybe a quick project that we could do in-house. And we want to look towards the additional money that we've gotten from the gas tax to possibly fund those types of projects, something along the the $500,000 to $1 million range. We've increased that fund by $500,000. We don't have the exact figures based on the increase, but we think it's going to be somewhere around the $500,000 to $1 million range. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Griffith, do we have Blaze Drive included in this?
It is. We're actually, they have Rollins Excavating, our annual contractor, has started work on the reconstruction of that portion of Blaze Drive. And we are using a balance of some funds that from State Street Aid that we've not spent over the last several years to fund that.
Thank you.
So I'll ask a question. It's going to be similar to what I asked last year at this time, and also stuff I've talked to you about when we talk about turn lanes. So and maybe this is a Rob question, I don't know, is, from a budgetary standpoint, from where we've been the last 2 years to what we're committing this year, what does that look like? I mean, let's back out the state funds, but from a city's participation level, what did the city put forth towards I want to say improving streets. I don't really mean a pothole. I mean putting in a turn lane, putting in taking care of some traffic hot spots, lengthening a turn lane, whatever that might look like. Just kind of give us a summary. The last 2 years or so, where have we been, and what is this budget providing for city participation?
Okay. let us, pull some numbers together and respond back to you, because we'll give you a detailed, detailed report. And we'll also need to fold into the capital improvement plan.
Right.
Because that's really where the large money is spent for improving road projects. We'll pick up some smaller projects like Blaze in the annual budget, but mostly we fund those through the capital improvement plan, and that's usually tens of millions of dollars in each CIP.
I guess I'm looking at the ex-CIP dollars, the ex-big projects, like I say, these, we talked about this last year. I mean, I'm certain some of the areas that I see, there's probably some reason why my grand idea probably doesn't work. It's not long enough, it's not wide enough, something, but when you sit behind somebody who's turning left for about 17 minutes, maybe we ought to put a turn lane there, and maybe we already own the right of way. It shouldn't be that expensive for us to be able to do that. I'm just kind of, my thing last year was to look for hot spots like that and to try to address it. And what I'm trying to make sure is, are we providing for that? Are we providing you funds to be able to go out and look at, all right, to be able to turn left off of Highway 99 in the morning instead of backing up to Rockvale just because one person decides they want to turn left and there's no light there, maybe, I know it's, that's a state road and we got other obstacles that go along with that, but, we can work with the state. I'm pretty sure the state says it's okay if we'll spend our money to improve their road, they're going to let us.
We have. The state's been very good to work, and we've done that a lot with new developments as they come in. We've state routes, local routes, as far as building turn lanes along that. But this the new position that I'm requesting that'll be a big focus of theirs, is actually to look for spots like that. Of course, working with Mr. Kerr and his department, they receive a lot of the traffic complaints, but then it's our job to go out and to build the improvements. And so that's one of the things that that our new project engineer would look at is and find some ways to fund those. A lot of times we've just kind of stuck them on. With part of maybe an adjacent capital improvement project, maybe extend an improvement project or something along, but it still takes time to get those through the system, get them designed. What we'd like to do, much like what we're doing with Blaze Drive, we may see some structural improvements to Haynes Drive a little bit later this year as well. We're having a lot of failures between Wiltshire and Thompson. But use some in-house resources to do a design and to make some improvements like you're mentioning.
Well, I just want to make sure that not only with the position that can go out there and locate those issues, that we have prepared from a money standpoint to actually do the project. And
yes, sir.
I think surely I'm not the only one up here who would think that traffic is a pretty big topic and something that we certainly would need some proactive help from somebody in yours or Jim's area to be, going after it aggressively would be my point. And that's, was my point a year ago and still would be my point. And,
yes, sir. And that one line item, Mr. Lance, the largest one in this budget has gone from $1.8 million 2 years ago, $1.8 million to $2.5 million. So it's getting more funding.
That's pretty good. My gut reaction to that would be that's pretty good. I'm not sure that's as good as it needs to be, just right honest with you. But, again, my whole point is
it's going in the right direction.
It's going in the right direction, but, it is. I just, we need to get aggressively proactive. And again, we all know that,
And this is where the Improve Act that was passed by the General Assembly this year helps us.
Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully that'll help too. So anyway, just for my 2 cents worth between now and the time we approve this budget, if you already know of some of those things that can benefit, we're going from 1.8 to 2.5. If you think there's another $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 that you would get, the citizens would get a real big bang for their buck on traffic, we need to know. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Chris, is there, Are you pretty confident when we look at the gas tax that's coming in? Of course, it's based off total gallons of gasoline sold and stuff, so I mean, it is a projection, but are you pretty confident that we're going to get enough revenue as far as our fair share of it? How is that distributed? Are smaller communities, or does it actually look at high growth areas when they do the distribution of that fund?
It is it's basically just based on, I want to make sure that I'm not telling you anything wrong. Pretty sure that it's just based on population. Is that right, Mr. Crumley? Yes. Which obviously the new census that we're coming up with this year will help us in that. They don't necessarily target new communities. It's just it's just an allocation based on your population.
Yeah, but if you had a growing area that had dramatic growth like we're experiencing, obviously there's more road projects needed than there would be in an area that has the same exact population as we currently have today that isn't experiencing any growth. So I mean, I'm not sure that that's really a good way of distribution, but I know you're not in charge of that, so.
I won't disagree with you.
Higher in the food chain.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to the Transportation Department, page 134.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'd like to talk about last year's accomplishments real quick. We have finalized our environmental document for the transit facility. It is actually in FTA's hands for signature, so we're excited about that. Rover surpassed 2 million passengers in ridership. We also completed the LED change-out for all the signalized intersections, so we're totally LED on our signals. Through a competitive TDOT grant, the city received a CMAQ award from TDOT for the Rutherford Boulevard Adaptive Traffic Signal System for $3.36 million. I received that contract yesterday, and we're bringing it to council for you guys' approval next council meeting. We also did Stone River Greenway, yay for everybody. And we started the initial implementation of the holiday signal timing plans for Medical Center and Oak Fort Parkway. Some of our department goals this year would like to hire an additional full-time Rover driver to improve our challenges with our schedules. And actually, I believe that is probably the last full-time driver that we can hire for Rover with our current operations, a shift in operations. So I'd also like to hire a new traffic engineer to provide additional support related to traffic engineering functions. This will allow current staff to focus more on global operations of the city's traffic facilities to improve operation efficiencies. We'd also like to implement and complete the operational study for the Broad and Memorial Oak Fort Parkway project. Looking forward to that. We are hoping to get into the final design phase of the transit center. We would also like to complete the PE and NEPA phase of the Rutherford Boulevard Adaptive Traffic System. And another major goal is to finalize major thoroughfare plan. We have already initiated the complete assessment, or the Rover service assessment study with TDOT Multimodal. We hope to have that completed by late fall of this year. And we're also looking at implementing Wi-Fi services on the Rover buses starting next year. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Kerr?
Mr. Kerr, what is our daily ridership on Rover currently at? I mean, how many people are we?
Daily, well, it's about 1,100 daily.
How many?
11 to 1,200 daily.
I know it's a phenomenal service for those who use it, and one of the comments I've heard when talking to drivers in the past was we need more full-time drivers. So I think you're going in the right direction in requesting one.
We are having a little bit of a challenge with all the construction going around the hub, so it's been somewhat of a challenge.
It's not just the Rover drivers.
That's right.
And will you pass on to the drivers? I've heard a lot of compliments on how friendly and how they really help people that need help getting on, if they have things they're getting on with or need to be strapped somewhere, that they're excellent in that area.
Yes,
You will
ma'am,
pass that on to
they
them.
do
I
a
appreciate
fantastic
that.
job.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to the community development portion.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I really don't have a lot more to say to you than I was able to pass on to you during our April 20th workshop. I will say that the public comment period on our action plan has ended, but we'll continue to accept public comments until we get ready to submit the plan. The federal budget was approved, and HUD is currently waiting for OMB to give them their numbers. And we're being told by the folks in D.C. that we might get our allocation by late June. I'm going to be bringing you a letter on June 8th asking you to, one, authorize the Community Development Department to revise the action plan based on the percentages that we talked about on April 20th. Once we get the actual number, we'll ask you to authorize the mayor to sign the certificates that are required with that, and then also authorize the Community Development Department to submit the action plan to HUD for approval. That's it. Nobody's going to ask me if I need more people?
Melissa, Melissa, under the budget,
I'm sorry?
Right now, it's based, as I told you on April 20th, is based on educated guesses.
Well, I'm having trouble with the math under, we show 2000, under administration, we show actual budget for 15-16 is 152. Then 2016, we show 146. 2017-18, 156. But then we show an increase of 156,000. Those numbers don't add up. Same thing for acquisition.
Looks like they've gotten their columns messed up. When they were trying to add that percentage change column, some of these kind of got messed up. So I'll get them to check those formulas.
Okay, yeah, because it makes it look like that we're spending $415,000 more, and I don't think you're doing that this year, are you?
No.
No.
In fact, as I pointed out to you, I think on April 20th, what we can spend on admin using our federal dollars is capped.
I'm just hoping, Melissa, that this is a budget that it's right now. It shows that we're increasing $995,000, which it doesn't look like that we're increasing that. So I'm hoping that.
No, I'm sure it's that percentage column. When she added that, she struggled with getting some of the formulas to work in, and get it to fit the page. I have a feeling that one's just one she overlooked.
Let's hope that we just found $995,000.
We're hoping that we'll be able to bring you our real budget in October.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Callow? Thank you, Mr. Callow. Mr. Callow, I don't know if you've known this, but the Braves have won 9 out of their last 12 games.
I think the Braves are doing a great job with former Cardinal Matt Adams at first base.
Who's watching baseball during hockey season?
That's a good point. I would remind Mr. Callow that we're the ones who are voting on the budget. Just kidding, Mr. Callow. All right, general government buildings, 69, Mr. Dennis.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I want to touch on accomplishments first. Won't take too much of your time. We completed the implementation of facilities dude. It's been a great program. Still some work to be done, but we plan on getting it done. Another thing we've got done this year was converted the former sanitation building to a new city training center, and that's being in use right now as a temporary location for senior center folks. And when senior center is finished, we'll get that use for a training center, and it'll be a great asset to the city. Also completed about 40% of the building efficiency improvements project, ESG program. We expect to get that done this year. I want to touch a little bit on facilities due, if I can, because my folks deserve it, actually. They have completed over 2,000 work orders in the last year, 900 of which are planned maintenance. And I say, and that is the key. In the past, we didn't have any planned maintenance inspections. Now we're looking at each building every month. And we're being proactive, not reactive. So we're building a good program, and it's going to grow as the city grows. I'm very proud of that program. Been hearing that word a lot lately. Our goals are to expand facility due to include the new PD building, Fire Station 4, and various other parks and rec structures. Also develop and initiate a new City Hall access control and security plan, and complete the building efficiency improvement project. I'm also requesting one more custodian. That custodian will be working in City Hall. Will also be going to our new training center, and also working at the street division, and possibly, if we can fit them in, urban environmental. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Still deciding.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Dennis? Thank you, Ron. All right, we'll move to the parking garage.
That would be me as well. Yep. While I was getting away. I'm sure you have questions on the parking garage.
Looks like the budget's gone
You'll see
down.
one repair and maintenance item for $40,000 in there.
Any questions on the parking garage?
How often does the parking garage get cleaned? As far as
once a week.
Just, I'm talking about actually cleaned as far as fire hoses or something going in there and spraying all the dusty stuff off.
To my knowledge, we don't run fire hoses or anything. We run a sweeper in there, and I have one person go through there once a week and reset the wheel stops, and also pick up any trash that the sweeper didn't pick up. Generally speaking, we don't have someone go in and spray down the parking garage.
There's a few cars down there that need spraying off, but I would suggest. But
Yeah.
Do we have any idea how long vehicles are stranded or abandoned in the parking garage before we take action on those?
There's a few vehicles down there. I noticed when I was walking down there last week. We need to get rid of. There's quite a bit of dust on them. We need to make notes. I need to get contact PD.
Yes, we actually noticed about a month ago, Ms. Moody and I were talking, I think we talked about this at a council meeting. I'd walked through the garage, saw those same number of vehicles. I know you've called me about those in the past, Mr. Smotherman. And now that the city code's online, I did a search, and we actually have an ordinance that would prohibit those vehicles from being parked long-term in the garage. I think it's time that we pick that ordinance up. And I know there's some businesses and other establishments that park it there. They'll have phone numbers on the side. We'll make contact with them, and we'll do our best to do it in a friendly way. Some are just either abandoned or the owner's just garaging a junk vehicle here, and we'll go through a process to have those removed.
I know earlier in the meeting we were talking about available parking spaces and stuff in the downtown area and stuff, and I know there's, I hear conversation that the parking garage is absolutely full at times now, and that would probably be one of the places. It may not be the huge impact, but it'll definitely be a starting point to get some of those cars out of there that are basically abandoned vehicles.
We could actually put signage in there, 48 hours, no long-term parking. something of that nature?
We'll
Give 'em
look
notice.
at both signage, so there is notice, and then, I know there's a number of churches that may park it here during the week and then use it on the weekend. We'll reach out to them personally, make contact, and let them know they'll need to discontinue, because I think it is either a 48-hour or 72-hour. So we're going to pick that one back up, because we've noticed the same thing.
I mean, it's a good problem to have that our downtown is staying busy with parking. So, I mean, it is a good problem to have. But at the same time, when, I'm here in and out quite frequently, and there are times that, during, 10 to 11 o'clock and then after lunch that, you can't find a parking spot in
Especially
the
on
garage.
court days.
Yeah, so, court days. All right, Mr. Dennis, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move to the Communications Department, page 81.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Here to present the Communications Department budget. This past year, we went through a lot of change in our department. We completely rebuilt the city TV facility, and it's now in high definition. We started closed captioning the city council meetings in real time. City TV channel was added to the Roku streaming devices. And we also began streaming the channel live on our YouTube channel. We started using Facebook Live to stream meetings as well. As far as numbers go, we achieved over 60,000 views of our live and archived videos online. We have over 5,400 followers to the city's main Facebook page, over 4,000 followers to the city's Twitter feed. Received several awards this past year from national organizations, one for the use of social media, a news program that we do, a library program that we do, and also a public service announcement on Park Smart. Our main initiative this coming budget year will be to renew the Comcast cable television franchise agreement that expires in June of 2018. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
That's right. I think we have the same thing here too.
Okay. I'll have her go back through all of them.
Yeah, I don't think we're down 1,756%, unless we just eliminated the city TV department. I don't think. But we're showing your budget $755,000 less than last year.
Well, we'll go back and check all of those. Hopefully, the departments are looking at theirs too, in case there's anything else that they notice that we don't catch ourselves.
Absolutely. Yep. Any questions?
You do a great job.
Thank you.
When I look at your station, or our station, I don't know if I'm looking at NBC, CBS. I mean, it's fabulous.
Thank you.
And you have the different types of programs you have coming on. Everybody can find something they like. And the coverage is excellent.
Thank you.
So if you would let your staff know that.
Sure will. They do a great job.
And you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roseman. All right, we'll move to the Judicial Department, page 98.
You said Judicial Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. The Judicial Department narrative contains our accomplishments and goals, and I will not repeat them. The budget numbers appear on page 100. We have no big projects this coming year, so our budget is relatively the same as it was last year. And the income or revenue on page 32, however, is down significantly due to the red light camera revenue. Because
What page did you say?
I have 32. You may have a different page.
Page 100 would be the judicial.
The revenues are on 32.
It's 100 in our book.
Well, the revenue, he was talking about revenues. They are on page 32.
Court fines and the red light revenue.
We had the transition in the red light camera company that caused there to be a lack of tickets issued for a period of time, which accounts for the red light camera revenue. And the ticket court fines and cost revenue is just a factor of a reduction in the number of tickets written, primarily. Be glad to answer any questions.
I would like to say I go in every once in a while and sit down and observe Judge Sellers, and I'm telling you, Judge Judy has nothing on you. You do a fabulous job.
Thank you.
And I like your demeanor with the people. You try to do everything you can to help them out, so they won't feel like they're coming there and being browbeaten or anything. You know, when you think about going to court, you know, they already kind of anxious, but you do an excellent job.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming in and looking in on us. We've got good people coming into court, so we try to remember that.
I hope that none of us are in front of you for other reasons. So that we are just there observing.
Yeah, you just come pop your head in anytime. We won't try to pin anything on you.
All right. Any
Thank
questions for the judge? All right, Parks and Recreation Department.
Good evening. Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department recently celebrated the grand opening of both the Miracle Field and the North Murfreesboro Greenway. We worked with the community, the Parks and Recreation Commission, and Murfreesboro City Council to develop a master plan to build the West Park. Significant improvements have been made at Bradley Academy Museum. We assumed operations of the Lions Club building at Cannonsburg, and we are completing construction of 6 new soccer practice fields at the Jordan Farm. We're adding sports lighting to Richard Siegel Park and to Old Fort Park Tennis. And to prepare for the future growth of the park system, the city purchased 160 acres on Franklin Road. We're working to utilize technology to better engage the community, and just this week are implementing point-of-sale credit card abilities at all of our facilities. As we look forward to the upcoming fiscal year, our strategic goals include the development of a comprehensive master plan for Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department, which was identified as a critical strategy in Murfreesboro 2035. Construction of Phase 4 of the Stones River Greenway extension to connect to the trail to Barfield Crescent Park begins this summer. When complete, there will be over 15 miles of designated greenway trails. We will begin construction of the West Park and continue to address shortfalls and current demands for parks and recreation facilities by aligning capital improvement projects to needs assessments, to citizens' input, and to national standards. Another key goal is to address the effective management of our park resources with a focus on maintenance, including the construction of new maintenance facilities to be located with strategic access to our park system. You will see an emphasis on preventative maintenance and best practices in our existing parks and park facilities, and this will include increases in budgeting for playground safety surface replacement. As you know, we have an incredibly talented team of staff and are pleased to have 3 new full-time positions proposed in this budget. 2 are dedicated to our maintenance staff. 1 is a groundskeeper, and the other is an irrigation technician, which may ultimately be a groundskeeper maintenance position. These 2 new staff members will be key in maintaining the standards that our community expects in our parks and our athletic fields as our city and our park system continues to grow. The 3rd new position is an assistant aquatics coordinator who will ensure that our aquatic facilities consistently operate with effective supervision, provide outreach and water safety, and meet goals for innovative aquatic programming. We continue to grow and excel in athletic program while attracting and hosting tournaments, including this week's spring fling activities. And our priority and focus is also centered on wellness, cultural arts, historical preservation, and youth development. Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department strives to meet and exceed the expectations of our community in the implementation of the goals and priorities set by Council. And I welcome any questions that you have.
You're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you.
I observed and received a few phone calls, and I actually went over and checked, you know, when you all housed the senior citizen department, and the senior citizens were very, very complimentary of the accommodations that they did receive from Patterson. And any other place I visit that you all are directly responsible for, you do an excellent job. I just want to say thank you and welcome you as our new director.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith and his team at Patterson have enjoyed the seniors there very much. I appreciate our staff pulling it together.
Any questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
Always
Thank
high
you.
expectations, and you always set such a high standard that it's hard to complain about anything. Although I'm sure somebody will find an opportunity at some point. But keep up the good work.
Thank you. Appreciate your support.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to the Human Resources Fund, page 92.
Good evening. Mayor McFarland and members of the Murfreesboro City Council, I am delighted to present and proud on behalf of our department the FY18 budget, which is approximately $1.1 million. This represents a slight overall decrease to last year's projected budget. The reduction itself is accounted for in a reduction of operating budget costs, mostly resulting from a reallocation of forecasted budgeted professional services and contracting services for Kronos, which will in effect be absorbed by Mr. Lilly in the IT budget. I'm also very proud of the Human Resources team accomplishments this year, including our transition, with your help, to arrears payroll, the kickoff of our new wellness program called Go 365, and management of our health care claim dollars, meeting our targeted spending of $1,145 per employee per month. And we're in the final stages of recruiting a training and development manager, which will be a new addition to our team. If you're taking count, it's a 10% increase in our headcount. We continue to assist our internal customer departments with their important HR-related projects, including selection, promotion, and succession planning projects in MPD and fire and rescue, and of course in providing related benefits and services to all of our city employees. Gallagher Benefits Consulting will be conducting a council workshop on June 6th at 4:00 p.m. to communicate the results of their market analysis and total compensation study that you asked be conducted. Our focus for FY18 will be in further utilizing the IPMHA transformational framework by focusing on areas such as understanding business acumen, innovation, and strategic orientation. Ms. Russell will now present the health insurance-related recommendations, including medical premium information, benefits cost projections, and additional wellness information. We will be happy to answer any questions you may have following her presentation. Pam?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The City is recommending a 3% employee medical premium increase with an option to review additional claims data in the fall to determine if lower premiums can be applied in January 2018. 3% represents an additional $2.53 a month for an employee on an employee-only HRA plan, and an employee on our richest plan, the PPO family, would see a monthly increase of $11.41. As you'll recall, in the recent council workshop, we talked about benefit projections, where we basically look at 22 months, 12 months back, and then 6 months in the new 2018, look at trends, and then apply a cost and premium rates. Gathering 5 more months of actual claims data will produce greater accuracy for those projections. This is the reason we want to review claims again in the fall. Should it be determined that premium should be lowered, we'll make that recommendation to council at that time. It's important to note that while claim costs have increased, the last approved premium increase for employees was in 2015. Additionally, there is no recommendation to increase premiums for those on the Medicare supplemental plan. At this time, no changes are being recommended to the wellness program. We currently have over 35% of our employees participating to date. We hope to move that up to about 55% by the end of the year. The financial impact on the recommendation above would increase over last year, about $450,000, or a total of $15,739,000. The cost includes all the medical benefits mentioned, including dental, stop loss, and any administrative expenses and health care reform fees. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a few questions. You indicated that it was going to be recommended that the employees get a 3% increase. With about 2% of this, Mr. Godwin, would that be done by adjusting or moving the pay scale up for employees?
Yeah, Ms. Harris, the 3% represents an across-the-board amount for all eligible employees. We've not yet learned from Gallagher what their recommendation is in terms of a salary structure adjustment, and we expect that information will be presented in the June 6th workshop.
Okay, so that study is not in yet?
No, ma'am.
Okay, in the past, I'm going to base my question then in the past what we've done, and once the pay study gets in, we can talk about that. But my question is, an employee that has been with the city 10 plus years, who's not currently at market or closer, would this put them further away from market? With what you're saying, sounds like it's going to put them further away. It's not going to help. The employee, I'm talking about the 10 plus years of service employee that who's currently not at market, they're below market. Will this not put them further away? It has in the past, I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am. If the council agrees that the structure should change or should move based on the presentation that's made in communication with administration, then that is a possibility for the employee to move further away from market. But keep in mind that the minimum and the maximum would also move. Once again, I think it's premature to make a recommendation that any of the structures change until we see the data.
Okay, but based on the past, it's not going to be good if it moves them further away, and if it's closer, if it's going to move them closer, I would, and I'm sure the council would like to see all that in writing.
Yes, ma'am. We'll present that to you in writing.
Okay. Second question. With the 3% increase that's recommended, given across the board, how is that really going to help an employee who is not in the upper echelon of the pay scale? You know, someone that's getting a huge increase with this 3%, they're okay with a 3% increase in insurance, but the average, and I say about 15% or less of the people will really not feel the 3%. But I'm talking about the other 85% of the people. 3% increase in pay, and then we're increasing the insurance 3%. How is that helping our employees?
Yes, ma'am. So as I understand the question, if an employee is in perhaps a lower part of our salary ranges,
which is the majority of the employees,
how would a 3% salary increase compare to a 3% medical premium increase? We costed this, and that information was provided to Mr. Lyons for the average city employee as well as the lowest paid city employee who currently can be eligible for our health insurance. With a 3% medical premium increase and a 3% pay raise, the employee at the very lowest salary range will come out ahead in total spend, if you will, throughout the entire fiscal year. So it is not dilutive, or it doesn't take the employee backward in any way, shape, or form.
I don't see that. I mean, I'm just going by what has happened last time with the pay increase. And then when we got the pay study back before, and I don't see really the rationale being any different with this pay study. We're just trying to make sure the employees are getting paid that they deserve. But I'm still saying, based on all the money we spent on the last survey, 2% of that was done by moving the pay sliding scale, moving it up 2%. That's how we did it. So I'm saying I don't see us doing that any different with this new pay scale coming out, with this new study. So I'm still talking about the employee who has been here 10-plus years and who's currently not at market. It's going to move them further away from market. I mean, that's mom and apple pie there. It's going to move them further away from market. Now, if it's going to move them closer, here again, I, as a council member, would like to see that in writing because it's no way it's going to move them closer. It's just going to take them further behind. That's my take on the 3%. Another thing I had to ask, in the 2016-2017 budget, were there any reclassifications done after the council approved the 2016-2017 budget?
Ms. Harris, not to my knowledge. I will review to find out if there were any, and I will report those back. I'm not aware of any.
Okay, let me ask the question, re-ask the question a different way. In 2016 and 2017, in July when we approved that budget, you all had no employees to come to their department head, no request to come to your office asking you all to relook at, like if I'm an employee, I ask Shane is my boss, to relook at me being reclassified. I feel like I'm in the wrong group. You all had no requests like that?
Again, I'm not aware of any. I'll be happy to research that and find out because we would know what the effective date of those reclassifications are. What we decided to do, as I remember in 2015, is make those reclassifications an annual request through the city manager's office.
So no employee received an increase in pay after we approved the 2016-27 budget?
Well, once again, not to my knowledge. I'll be happy to research that.
Okay. I would like to see, employees are telling me differently. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would just like to see a list of any approved or disapproved requests for an increase in salary or a request to be reclassified. Because employees are telling me they made the request to be reclassified.
And Ms. Gales-Harris, there are still some pending reclassifications that we were still working on, so there may be some more information that I'll absolutely report back to council on reclassifications, but there are still several that are pending for this upcoming year.
Okay, so nobody received an increase in pay based on asking to be reclassified or look at my class that I'm in or look at my pay. Nobody was increased.
But there's still some that are being reviewed.
I mean, but nobody was increased 2016, 2017.
There were some increases, I know, for some hard-to-fill positions in water sewer. We had some high turnover where we had to address labor and worker, where we had lost about 17 employees, and the policy allowed the city manager to make those changes.
I think tree trimmer, wasn't that one that we talked about?
I believe we moved. We hired.
Yeah, Urban Environmental had a.
It was a hard-to-fill position.
As a tree climber position, as I recall, that individual unfortunately has since vacated, so we're going to be back looking for that hard-to-fill position again.
So if y'all happen to find where an increase was made to somebody's salary, my next question is, did it come to the council for approval?
Well, I think it would depend on the reason for the increase, Ms. Harris, because if it involves something that the city manager has authority to increase, like the hard-to-fill position, it may not, in fact, come to the council.
But according to our ordinance, 1 penny over what we voted on has to come to the council for approval with any department.
No, the way the hard-to-fill was at the discretion of the city manager.
But it comes to the council, though.
Not according to the policy that was adopted by council on the hard-to-fill.
Yeah, because I think we had issues with CDL drivers at water and sewer that we couldn't find.
Yes.
People to drive trucks in the water and sewer department. So I think that, in that specific instance, that was one. I know we had discussed that at council, but that was something that, under those hard-to-fill positions, that y'all.
Mayor, I think that's correct. I think council approved in 2015 a set of policies that allows the city manager to approve a hard-to-fill position at a higher starting salary than the range, as well to apply experience credit. So if an employee has a lot of experience, that would allow the city to recruit perhaps a more qualified employee. However, we have held fast and not allowed any such employee to supersede or to go above a current employee's salary to maintain internal equity. So again, that flexibility is there, but we've maintained those policies.
I think you had several things going on there, but one of the things that I would be interested in addition, if that's what she was asking for, would be that, it may not be a bad idea if it's an annual, if there's an annual time for folks to be able to put in those types of requests. I think we all felt like it was important for our employees to be able to at least request that, basically what we were calling administrative review. I think, sure, maybe just give us an update on that from time to time as say,
Still have several that I need to finish up, and I will report back to the council, my decision when they were approved and when they weren't.
For the year, for the whole year. Did all that come at once? Was I hearing that correctly?
I'm talking about fiscal year 18, the year that the budget year we're getting ready to head into. I will report to you the list of the employees who are requested to be reclassified and then my decision.
I got you.
I would say this more as we talk about HR, and so I'm not directing this towards the HR department, so I'm saying this globally. And I want to really reiterate something I've talked to Mr. Lyons about. Our employees have gone through a massive amount of change over the last 3 to 4 years between Kronos and just there are things that continue to that we have said, okay, payroll and arrears, that's going to fix some of the issues that we've been having with our paychecks, with our especially the decision that the council made to pay $1 million to be able to do that for our employees. I think change is a good thing. Either you're working to improve or you're not, but at some point we get to where the analogy of drinking water through a fire hose. I think it's now time to turn that spigot off a little bit, and everyone needs to pump the brakes, and we need to rest a little bit.
Mayor, and I started off my budget message this year with we're setting sail for smoother waters. We have undergone a lot of change. We tackled some pretty difficult topics, things that have been around for a long time that weren't efficient and weren't very effective, and it did put our employees through a lot, and they did what they always do. They did a great job. It wasn't always easy. We, had some difficulties along the way, but our team's awesome. And now it's time to try to settle some of those down. So some of those really big things about automating our financial software, or automating our time and attendance, getting to arrears, were difficult, but we got them done. We've got a couple tweaks in police to do with the tour of duty. And the 40-hour work week and a 7-day tour, and we are expediting those, and we're hoping to put those two behind us and be in the clear.
The last thing I would say, in not trying to sound like the old guy that's sitting up here, but I've now gone through 3 different HR directors, so I've had the ability to be able to see Sherry Carpenter and see Sue Mahon, and now see Mr. Godwin. Or Goodwin, I get you.
It's Godwin.
Yeah, Lanny. Go figure with Lanny coming back. He's always there. But I think there's always areas that we can improve. But I think something that I can't speak for all the council members, but something that we consistently hear, the ability to be able to sit down with employees that when they come into the HR department, the ability to be able to easily explain, be empathetic, to be able to really just have a listening ear. Sometimes that you don't have to fix it. People need to understand. And I think that's something citywide that we can improve on. But we have got to make sure that with all of our employees, from chief of police to solid waste to Parks and Rec. If they have questions, they need to feel like that there's an open door that they can always come in and hear from. And I think that goes from your office, which we always know we can come in and talk, but I really want to make sure that with the changes that we've had come across, that employees know that there are people who want to listen to them in the department.
And you've done a good job on that, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other departments that we need to talk about? All right.
I'm good.
No.
That's fine.
All right. We have the legal department who just got Chris Lilly for this year.
And Mayor, before Mr. Tyndall begins, we've had some. The way we budgeted the legal department was really to kind of make it look like the city didn't need a legal department. And I think that's how the position was originally justified many, many years ago. But we decided this year we were coming clean, and we've just lined up the legal department as a true general fund department. There were transfers from the risk management fund and so forth, and we really felt, even though the math all kind of works out the same, we really just wanted to make it simple. The legal department is a general fund department, just like the finance department is, and just really smooth some things out. So we thought it made more sense to do it that way, more directly as opposed to indirect.
There you go.
Kendall.
So from a budgeting standpoint, based comparison to last year, there's not any changes. So unless you have any questions on the legal department, spend a few minutes on risk management.
You've done a good job.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Risk management, we did have some changes in risk management. Mr. Lyons talked about one and how we've used the risk management department to fund the legal department, and we've changed that to streamline things and make it a bit more transparent. We've also moved premiums, insurance premiums, what we pay for insurance policies, into the risk management budget, and reallocated how the department overhead was assessed across the organization. Some of our major changes were in the workers' compensation adjustments. You'll recall that we did a contract for a third-party administrator to handle our workers' comp, which provided a lot of benefits. We also revised the departmental and the funds, how they're assessed for risk management this year, to make it a little more logical on how they were paying for the risks that their departments represented. And we reduced the amount of reserves held for aged claims, which had the effect of freeing some capital. We also adjusted the risk management fund balance this year, bringing it down. I provided a memo earlier today, and I apologize for it being so late, but earlier today, and you have it there. I'm happy to answer any questions when you do get a chance to read that, but it shows graphically a little bit about what we were trying to do with the risk management fund. The other thing it shows in the memo is the coverages that we do carry now for the city. We are looking at some additional coverages. A couple different areas, the general liability and aggregate access coverage for workers' compensation claims are two areas that we're taking a look at. But we're also looking at E&O insurance, which has a benefit of also providing cybersecurity coverage, which, as we transition and take more and more credit cards, makes a lot of sense. And that E&O package usually includes employment liability insurance, which is something, as our employment base grows, is also good coverage to have. So we're getting quotes on that now. We've actually budgeted for E&O this year. So when we get a quote in that makes sense and we shop it, we'll probably secure that coverage. If we do general liability or aggregate workers' comp excess, we would come back to council for an amendment to do those coverages, or wait until next budget year. With that, if you have any questions, you want to talk about insurance more this late in the day, happy to answer those. I didn't think so.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other budget questions?
The
Mr.
next
Lyons?
session will be next Thursday,
4 o'clock?
4 o'clock, yes, sir.
All right, we don't have a council meeting tonight, so I think we would all wish everyone a happy Memorial Day, especially for all those that gave the sacrifice that we can even be doing this. And if you haven't had the opportunity, the Exchange Club will have their healing field starting this weekend. This year it's at the Grove out on Medical Center Parkway. You can see that they were setting up there today, so if you get a chance, go by and check that out. All right, seeing no other business, we'll stand adjourned.